Hello, podcast friends. I know it's been a while since a new episode of Uniquely Kentucky. I was on the road for 3 weeks covering the University of Kentucky basketball team and the SEC tournament, and then went on the NCAA rounds. But I'm back, and I'm sitting down with unique Kentuckians doing really interesting things. In this latest episode, we're talking more books. Meet Cynthia Ellingsen, a Lexington mom and author who now has several books under her belt and quickly writing more. From WKYT Podcast, this is Uniquely Kentucky. I'm your host, Amber Philpott. Cynthia Ellingsen, welcome in to Uniquely Kentucky. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
You just said to me, if I say anything crazy, it's because I literally haven't slept in 3 years. You have small children. I think people will understand, right?
Yes.
You look really put together.
Thank you. It's amazing what you can survive on caffeine. And after this I keep saying I'm Navy SEAL trained. So after I'm done with this period, once they start sleeping, the little kidlets, I can do anything.
Something else.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell people, full disclosure, I have known you the better part of probably almost a decade, would you say?
Crazy.
We met through a women's organization, and it's so thrilling to me to think about that you called me one day to ask to go to lunch for us to talk about marketing and how you got your name out if you wrote this book. And now I'm so excited to say that you're Cynthia Ellingsen author, like author of several books. Is that still weird for you?
It is weird for me. And what's completely weird is it just dawned on me, and I'm not kidding, maybe 3 weeks ago, somebody said, "Oh, what do you do?" And I said, "Oh, I'm an author." And before
of
that,
several books.
I did not tag on the several books part, but before that I would say, "Oh, I'm a writer," or "I do this," or "I do that." But it truly just hit me. Oh, I'm an author, which is what I always wanted to do. So I'm so excited about it.
You are not a Kentuckian, born and raised. You sort of found your way here, and we'll talk about that. But you, many years ago, before you came to Lexington, you were trying to make it in Hollywood, right?
I was.
Sort of doing the waitressing, trying to get an audition thing.
Yeah.
How was that? What did you want to do?
It was so much fun, honestly. I wanted to be in the arts. I wanted to be now the waitressing, I see you making a face. The waitressing was not, that was not very much fun. I was not good at that. But I loved Los Angeles. I loved that everyone who was there in the entertainment field had a dream and had something that they were passionate about and what they really wanted to do. And I went in for acting because I didn't quite know, and it sounds crazy, but I didn't quite understand what I would have to do to write, because, and this is going to date me in a big way, but the internet didn't exist back then. And so learning about how, you have to get an agent, and then you have, the agent submits your stuff to a publisher, and then that type of stuff, I had no idea what to do. And so it seemed easier to kind of, when I was going to school, do theater and say, I enjoy this, I'm good at this, this finally speaks to me, creating characters and telling stories and all that. And of course that all led to what I really wanted to do, which was to tell stories on the page.
Did I read that when you were a small child that you had two loves, obsessions?
Oh, no.
One was soap operas and the other was reading.
Yes.
Is that true or false?
That is true.
What was General Hospital your favorite?
Did you have in the fifth grade I would watch it.
Is that sort of your love? Like you kind of honed in on this love, like I want to do that, I want to be on the big screen, or was it just this weird, silly?
I think it was just this weird, silly kind of thing that I thought. Well, I grew up in a very small town in Michigan, and on the soap operas, everything was completely fake, but it was a totally different world that I found so fascinating. So yeah, it sucked me in, it drew me in. And then for reading, I loved reading. I would just read anything I could get my hands on. And these days I'm too busy writing to actually read very much. So I miss it desperately, but yeah, those were my two. And actually there was one more on that list. There were
Do tell.
Boy bands.
Oh, well, we're kind of girls of that age,
yeah,
so
exactly.
Boy bands are like a given to me.
Yeah.
That's a true obsession, right? I've been to New Kids on the Block twice and Backstreet Boys twice, so it's okay. In my adult years.
That's right.
Not my young years. I also read, though, that somewhere along the way, someone gave you a pen that smelled like grapes.
Oh.
And did that help you write?
It did. And I completely forgot about that, and I forgot that I said that, but yes.
And I remember those pens. Again, we're sort of the same age that we can appreciate that that was a thing. And how in the world, I mean, I know that sounds so silly, but where did the love of instead of wanting to be the person that's outwardly telling the story, you would rather write that story down?
It depends, really. It's really, I can remember, I can smell them in my mind. There was a bunch of different flavors, and it was fun for me to write, in the different colors and to smell the different things and to suddenly start making up these characters that, and I think that that's how you start to write, is you read these stories and you say, oh, I'm going to tell my version of what I just read. And so I was writing, a lot of, I guess, middle grade when I was of that age, and it was really fun.
Do you remember the notebook paper that was different colors?
Yes.
That was really cool. I had a love of writing as well, and that, I don't know, it made it seem more special when you wrote it down on certain colored
Purple
paper.
and pink.
Let's talk about you getting some success going back. First of all, you and a roommate wrote a screenplay, right? Was that 2009?
I couldn't even tell you at this point.
Long time ago?
I think it might have been longer than that, even maybe 2007, 2006, somewhere around there.
So what was the screenplay?
It was called For Worse or For Better. And it was two friends who decide to fake an engagement. And they, of course, end up falling in love, but all the hijinks that come along with that. And we were lucky enough to be represented by Bender Spink at the time, which was a company that was putting out a lot of different films that were getting noticed. And that got us in the door to be able to go pitch the studios and to go around and do that, and it was just a really exciting time, really fun experience. And then we would just write, and we started developing a bunch of different projects. But then the love of my life moved, and
came here to Lexington, right?
Yeah.
Talk to me about leaving, because here you are, you're really trying to make it in some capacity in LA, and then love. Fortunately, unfortunately, gets in the way. However, some people want to see that. But you came here and sort of said, okay, so talk to me about leaving that behind. Obviously, you're madly in love, and that didn't matter, but...
I think that it was one of those things where I ended up completely in the right place and where I was meant to be and what I'm supposed to be doing. And it was with the screenplays, my writing partner and I, we had a wonderful time pursuing that, but we never quite broke through. Now, granted, we didn't fight for it long enough. I mean, I do think that if we would have kept pushing and pushing and pushing for years, eventually we would have. But it just wasn't, I sort of feel like at some point when you're hitting your head against a brick wall, you have to say, okay, maybe this isn't the route you're supposed to take. So it wasn't that hard to leave behind, because I was at that point. And so, when faced with, okay, do I stay here or do I fall in love? Of course I'm going to fall in love.
And when you came here, following your love, what did you first do to kind of make a living?
I was in marketing. So I would just, I worked from home doing just random little jobs here and there. And with all the free time that I had on my hands, because I didn't know anybody yet, I was working on a book. And so I just kept kind of plugging away at that. And that filled that, the loss that I did experience moving here, of being able to put my hand into something creative, and then it became the whole package.
And the whole package came out, was that 2011?
Mm-hmm.
So if you've not read this book, it is a very interesting read about a group of ladies who are friends who really turn the tables on men. And it is I remember reading this book, it's been years ago, but it's laugh out loud in places. It really is. It makes you giggle, because you really do see these ladies sort of scheming to turn the tables. Tell folks, without giving a whole lot away about it, kind of about this book and where your idea came from for it.
It came from, it was just sort of the unfairness of the restaurant Hooters. I'm sorry to say it, but every time I would drive by a Hooters or walk by a Hooters, they had one on Hollywood Boulevard, I think, maybe it was sunset, I don't know. But I would just think, oh, that's so gross, that's so weird. Why is that okay? And people would be bringing their families in, and so just kind of as a joke, I thought, oh, it would be so funny. Like, would people bring in their families if men were the waiters? And so then the story kind of germinated from that, and it's about these three friends who knew each other all the way growing up, and then they all hit a certain point in their life where everything falls apart, and so they join together and they do this, and of course that falls apart, and then they figure out how to put it back together and put themselves back together in a way that works.
I find it interesting too. It's like a fancy eating establishment, right, in the book. So it's very classy in this book, but it is laugh out loud funny. Where do you? I always wonder with people who write, are you always looking for that next character just in the people around you, or things that you see in life as you're just kind of observing? Where does that come from?
It is from, I don't write about people that I know because I wouldn't have a friend left in the world, is what I like to say. But then also, it's too difficult to try and force somebody a character or a real person into a story, because you need to have them behave and do things in certain ways. And so it really doesn't work. But when I am writing, everything will sort of play into a story. I'll look around rooms a little bit more thoroughly that I'm sitting in and notice, the light fixtures or the smells in the room. And, so things will kind of sneak into a story that are of that time period, but not necessarily anything real, if that makes sense.
Could you believe the first time that you took your book, you pitched it, and then someone calls and they really want to publish it? What was that like?
Oh my gosh, I cried like a baby. It was so exciting. And getting someone to like a piece of creative work and to take a risk on it, because everything in the publishing world is very corporate, and so these editors, it's their job on the line. If they pick something that they can't sell, or that doesn't sell that many copies or whatever, it's someone willing to stake their career and reputation really on what you've created. And so it's really, I didn't realize all that at the time, how hard it actually is, but I just knew that it was difficult. And so now when I know the reality of the situation behind it, oh my gosh, I feel like a star landed on a bullseye. It was really, I'm very happy that it happened.
When you have one book that's out, how quickly are you expected to churn something else out?
It depends on what company you're with. And what it is exactly that you're writing. Right now I'm writing a series, and so that we are putting them out very, very quickly. I have one coming out this April, and then I have another one that's releasing in September. And I'm hoping to be able to do some more books after that. And that's the purpose of that is that once people find characters in a town that they like, they want to keep reading about them as quickly as possible.
Sure. You are a mom of two adorable kiddos. You openly admit, I don't know if I have a brain most days.
Yeah.
Where do you find the time to really sort of disconnect from being a mom right now to I need to be this writer, author, and can you separate the two? I guess you have to.
You have to. I when they go to bed at night, and I have a very understanding husband, he knows that those are the hours where I have to put in the work. And so things like the Netflix binges and all that, those we do when I'm off deadline or when I'm not working on something. And it's one of those things where you get it done. And there was a deadline that I had right around Christmas time, and I remember, I think I was getting maybe 3 hours of sleep there for a little while, but it's just, you just do it like with anybody in their job. It's just what you do.
Does it feel like work to you? I mean, I love telling stories, so for me it's not really work. I'm afforded the opportunity to do things like this, sitting and talking with you. So for you, when you have those deadlines, does it feel like true work when you're
it just sort of feels like a goal that you want to reach. It never feels like work. It just feels like so much fun. And the real timeline is making sure that you can tell the absolute best story that you want to tell in the amount of time that you have to do it. But no, nary a complaint. Every single day is a joy when I'm working.
Do you ever shoot up in the middle of the night in bed and you have an idea and you must jot it down?
Yes. And then I read it in the morning and I think, oh no,
that was terrible. What was I thinking?
Why wasn't I sleeping? That was my one chance to sleep.
So you had the whole package. Then you put out Marriage Matters, The Lighthouse Keeper in 2017. And then you have two things getting ready to come out, right? The Winemaker's Secret, which these are all fiction great stories, but then you're also tapping into young readers as well,
Yeah.
with The Girls of Firefly Cabin, released in May, coming up. That sounds pretty cool, to kind of go a different route.
I'm really excited about that one, because it's speaking back to the time when I was reading so much. When I was growing up, those were the books that would speak to me, and so now finally I put in the time to do that, and so I'm very excited about Firefly Cabin. It's about 4 different girls from very different backgrounds, and they all end up at summer camp together in the same cabin, and they each have a secret that they think that if they share it with the other girls won't like them or accept them, or they won't be, Firefly for real. And so it's about them learning and growing over those 8 weeks to trust each other and to trust in friendship that could last forever. And it's a summer that, changes their lives. And
I think that's very, very good of you to go to that younger reader route, because you and I are both self-proclaimed bookworms, but we also grew up in a very different time where we didn't have so much social media or so many tech things in front of us. Do you really feel sort of a responsibility from your love of reading to really pass that on and to get out there and promote the love of reading with young readers?
I do. I think it's so important to what we were talking about earlier, about seeing, for example, the soap operas on TV and having that be a life that's completely different. Really, of course, that's why I would read, is I would get to experience all these different lives in books. And so to be able to share a different experience, a different life lessons, it was just a thrill and an honor to be able to do it. And it's so funny because you said the social media and all of that, and it just kind of hit me that in the book, when they're at camp, there isn't that in their life. And so I guess maybe I went to a time or a setting where that wouldn't be, but that's not really true, because there's a storyline where the girl sneaks in her iPhone.
We talked about your obsessions when you were little. When did you first know that writing really was going to be your passion? Do you remember that exact moment?
Yes, I remember that exact moment. It was when I was moving here. Now, this is after I'd already started the screenplays and all of that, so I had been writing for a while, but I was moving here, and a marketing tour took me through New York City for a couple weeks. And nothing gave me greater joy than to sit down with my computer in a cafe, drinking coffee and looking out at New York City and writing a book. And I thought, wow, I am every cliche come to life right now, and I love it. This is what I want to do.
I am my own Hallmark movie right now.
Yes, exactly.
I am living it. Is writer's block a real thing?
Oh, gosh, yeah.
And what do you do to overcome it?
I think, I experienced some writer's block right after I wrote Marriage Matters, because at this point, that was, I guess you call it your sophomore book. This is my second book that came out, and that's when you really start to think, oh, I could have a career at this. But at the same time, then you have the decision of, okay, what do I really want my career to look like? And although I really loved the first 2 books that I wrote, what I wanted to sort of evolve in a different direction, and that was the series that I ended up writing, was the Starlight Cove series. But I didn't quite know how to get there, because the publisher that I was very lucky enough to be with, that didn't fit the brand that they were buying. And so it was tricky, and my editor and I, we would work together to try and find, what's the 3rd book going to be, and we couldn't quite settle on anything, because I didn't know what I wanted to do, because really I didn't want to do the 2 books that I'd already done before. I wanted to do something completely different. So that made it difficult for me to write for a little while there. But then finally, then I went and got a real job there for a little while, and I thought, okay, this is just going to be a hobby. That's, but of course that was not me at all. And it was, it was just one of those detours in life that really assured me that, no, you're on the right path. This is absolutely what you need to be doing. So then I sat down and I wrote what I wanted to write, and then I haven't stopped since.
I think it's like when I read all the time, oh, the places you'll go, to kiddos, always. And I use that in talking about your dreams and careers. And I think it's true. You just have bumps in the road, and sometimes you just go over them and you figure out what's at the bottom, and then you reassess and you come back around, right?
Yeah.
Talk to me about the series that you have. What will people find in this series?
It's a combination of history, mystery, romance, friendship, and family.
Wow, you pack it all in.
I pack it all into every book. and so that's why it was, so difficult kind of to settle on a genre. And it turns out, I thought that a genre for it didn't exist, but it is called cozy mystery.
I like a cozy mystery.
See? In a cozy mystery, I think by definition is a mystery that's not grisly. There's not really a dead body in sight, but it has, the sense of, all those different elements in there.
I love Mary Kay Andrews. She's one of my most favorite. And she may not fit completely in that cozy mystery, but I do enjoy kind of the laugh out loud funny. There's a lot of different characters. There's a little bit of a mystery. And I could go on and on about the cozy mysteries that I do read.
I'm so glad to hear that.
I do. How do you feel about, we're in a world where tangible books, people are shying away from the actual tangible book and going to wherever they can read it on their phone or on a tablet. How do you feel about the person that wants people just to read your stuff and they want you to purchase their stuff? Do you have a strong feeling one way or the other, or do you have to be neutral because you just want people to enjoy your books?
Well, I'm definitely neutral because I do just want people to enjoy my books. That said, I am my publisher that I love, that has given me this incredible, wonderful opportunity to write what I want to be writing, is Amazon. And so therefore they are the biggest, they sort of know how to market a book. They sort of know how to put a book in people's hands. And so, that's been an incredible experience because they started, I don't know their timeline in terms of, but, everybody knows now that they have a movie studio, that they have a television studio, and they have a publishing house. And so when they acquired The Lighthouse Keeper, I had similar expectations in terms of, my print books, in terms of the volume of readers that it would go into the hands of. And oh my gosh, they're Amazon, really, and love it or hate it. People have polarizing opinions about it, and I love the fact that people are going to find my books because they put them right in front of them, and they have the ability to match people who would be interested in what I write with those people. And so it's been an incredible experience being with them, and because of that, I absolutely love them. And also my mom, she's a huge reader, and she travels all the time. And one day, just kind of off the cuff, she said something like, "Oh gosh, my back feels so much better." And I said, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Well, I've got 20 books right here." And she lifts up her little electronic device, and I thought, oh my gosh, I never even thought about it that way. And I'd watched my mom read paper books, my entire life, but she loves her, and she can make the words bigger and this and that. And so to give that ability, I don't think that there's anything, I think it's progress, and we're moving forward.
I think there's something very interesting, too, about those pairings or matchings, if you will, that if I go on and look up one of your books, that it, usually gives me a suggestion of 3 other books that I might like. And I have found with a lot of the books that I read, when I find an author I love, and maybe I have finished all that I can of that author, I want something more, and I always appreciate knowing someone else that I might enjoy. And I do think that that is something that can help people like you, that it opens up a lot of different people that maybe they didn't even know you existed.
Right.
And now they want to read everything by you. But I do love being able to shut the book and be done and turn it over. So I still find myself in a good bookstore looking around, but I do order a ton of books, because they can be here very quickly, and I can get going on them. But I understand that, and I also understand it opens up a world to a lot of other people that are on the go, so they can still read.
Yep, and they can read it on their phone, they can read it on their Kindle. But also, another thing that's interesting to me in terms of just the evolution of my career is that the Firefly Cabin, The Girls of Firefly Cabin, is published by Albert Whitman, and that is one of the oldest publishing companies. They just celebrated their 100-year birthday, and so then Amazon is one of the newest, and so it's fun to kind of see those two.
Your newest book, adult book, debuts next month, correct? The Winemaker's Secret. What's it about?
Oh my gosh, it is about a family. Well, it's about a girl named Abby Harrington, and her family owns a vineyard in northern Michigan, and that's where the Starlight Cove series is set. It's an imaginary town in northern Michigan. And so they own this vineyard, and her brother has gotten into a lot of trouble in the past with drugs and, the law and this and that, and then he suddenly just shows up at the vineyard out of nowhere. And right around the time he shows up, their prized possession, the ice wine, which is an incredibly valuable form of wine in the northern parts, ends up missing. It's stolen. And so there's a lot of family secrets that start to come out, and it's a lot of fun. It's a fun book.
How much research goes into, you have these amazing characters that you want to put on paper and you have the story to tell, but I would imagine there's a lot of additional research and just to getting things correct about a certain area you're writing about or the wine industry. So how much of that goes into the writing process?
Quite a bit, particularly to go back to The Lighthouse Keeper, I knew nothing. Now, I know a little bit about wine, so that was a little bit easier to write about. But with The Lighthouse Keeper, I knew nothing about lighthouses. And so, God bless our public library, I went and I rented took out all of the videos that they had, educational videos about lighthouses. And I spent hours just watching and learning, and then same with internet, did internet research, and then went up and did a tour of some lighthouses up in northern Michigan. And so then when all that was said and done, I just put it away, forgot about it, because I didn't want to dump a bunch of technical information into the book. But then I knew enough about it that I could craft a story around it. And so it's like that with every book. This the Winemaker's Secret, I learned as much as I could about vineyards and then tried to just make it up. And actually, I had a contact at a vineyard in northern Michigan who was wonderful answering questions.
Cynthia, what do you say to folks that are, aspiring writers, authors, and they just don't really know where to start? They maybe have penned some stories or they've gotten, a chapter done and they just don't know where to go. What would your best advice be for them? My best advice, I always tell people to read the book Save the Cat, and it's by Blake Snyder, and it was a screenwriting book. And the reason I do that is there is a beat sheet in there, and it explains the structure of a story. And I think that is the most critical thing in being able to write a book and to tell a story, because oftentimes people start writing something that they feel really excited about, then they'll get to a certain point. The middle is the hardest part to write. But a beat sheet will tell you exactly what types of stories or what trajectory you need to go on to be able to make the middle of the story interesting. And having that knowledge will help people be able to continue on writing. That's my first piece of advice. And then the second piece of advice would be to just write and write and write and write and rewrite. And once you think your story is done, it is not done. Go back and rewrite it again and again and again, and then look at it. And then you're ready to start go shopping for an agent. Great. That is good advice. So for the gal that grew up loving soap operas and then wanted to maybe make her way into the entertainment world, what would it be like for you if you got the phone call and one of your amazing books was being turned into a TV movie or a series of some sort? I think that would be so incredibly exciting. I would love to see what someone else would turn that story into, because that's the fun thing about reading, right, is we all sit there and we read the stories and we picture it however our mind tells that story. And so then the story would, a lot of times people say, oh gosh, the book wasn't like, or the movie wasn't anything like the book I read. Well, we all see different things when we read. So I think it would be just so exciting to see what type of take the person would have on it. I'd love to see it. So you're a mom and you're a wife and you're an author. Do you still want to be the actor? Would that ever be in your... No, done with that. No, I'm so happy we're doing a podcast because I get so nervous on camera. Oh, that's funny.
Oh, yeah.
That's funny.
I never liked that part of it enough to think, I'd really want to go back and do something like that now. Absolutely
it seems like Central Kentucky has captured your heart.
It has.
I mean, I know that you all came here for a job, but you've obviously stayed.
Yeah. I think Kentucky is a wonderful place to be. What I love about it, I love the history that's here. I love the architecture. I love the things that make it unique, like the horse racing industry, the bourbon, all of that. It just has such texture and also community, I think, is such a huge part. In my books, one of the things I love about the Starlight Cove series is that it's set in a small town. Now, of course, that's Lexington, Kentucky is hardly a small town in any way. So the two don't compare in that sense. But what I'm drawn to with telling stories about small towns is I just love the ability to be in a place where you can go to the grocery store, bump into 6 people, and catch up with everybody without Facebook, without social media, and to be, involved in everyone's life in that sense. I think it's a really special thing, and we are all, kind of at risk of losing touch with each other because of, the electronic age and all that. So it's nice to have those visceral touch points with people.
So a couple of questions that I always ask my guests, and obviously with an author/writer, books we've already talked about have been so important to you. What's one book that really has meant something to you over the years?
There's a couple different answers to that. The first one, I always say Bridget Jones' Diary, always, because it was the first book that I ever read that I said, oh, wow, you can write like that? And so it helped me to find my voice. It helped me to realize that you don't have to write a book in formal language, that sort of to follow some, imaginary. It taught me that you can talk like a human to tell stories, and which that sounds terrible, but you know what I mean. Not talk like a human, but it taught me that you can speak in a relatable voice with readers and have your character talk like you've heard other people talk. So because of that, Bridget, and it's also funny as all get out. I think it's
incredibly
hilarious. So I love that book, and I could go back and read it again and again. But then in terms of local literature, Kim Edwards, I absolutely love her. She's one of my favorite people, and The Secrets of the Fire King is an incredible book. And I could just read that again and again, all the different stories, and she just has an incredible way with words. And so I love reading her stuff.
I will never forget that I had read her books, and I knew she was local, but I didn't know who she was. And I found out that I was working out right alongside her every day at my old gym and didn't realize it was her. And I found out because she came in here someone came in to do a show. She was here, and I was like, oh, you're the lady that I work. And I realized that, and then I sort of kind of geeked out and had this ridiculous moment where I might have just grabbed her and hugged her because her books are so beautiful.
Yeah.
And I appreciate, just good books. And so it was really a funny moment that she probably will never come back here again because it just happened. I mean, some people get excited about actors or famous musicians, and I just love books so much that it was just, I just love everything about knowing the process, and so I appreciate that. So I may or may not have just pounced on her. And this podcast, Cynthia, is called Uniquely Kentucky. So you have now called Central Kentucky home for a number of years. What do you think makes us so unique?
Well, gosh, there's so much that makes Kentucky, and the things that jump out in my mind are the stone walls, and the horse fields, the horse culture, the Keeneland, the bourbon industry, the basketball games, and the passion that we all have for that, the small community of, and the values and the beauty. I think Kentucky's incredibly beautiful.
What is next for Cynthia Ellingsen?
Oh my gosh, sitting down and trying to outline a whole bunch of books in the Starlight Cove series and going from there. Then I would also like to write some more middle grade. I'd love to write some children's books, and so just writing.
Where can people find you? If they want to check out any of the books that we've talked about today, where can people find them?
Definitely at Joseph Beth's, of course, and Briar Books, and then online, anywhere, Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, just come find me. I'd love
to. And you have a website, so, do you do speaking engagements as well?
I do, not so much anymore with the little ones. Yeah. I might go to the book fairs this year. I usually try and do that when my books come out. But the website will post, as I think I'll do a signing at Joseph Beth's, so it'll have the dates as to upcoming events and to when I'll be doing signings. But I just hope that people read them and enjoy them and get in touch with me and let me know what you think of them.
Cynthia, we appreciate you so much. Thank you for making Central Kentucky home and for bringing us amazing, fun stories of real people.
Thank you, Amber. Thank you so much for talking to me.